Well, hello there, everybody. Just jamming out to some Steely Dan, man. I'll tell you what. Tonight we're gonna chase the dragon, turn water into cherry wine. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. Welcome everybody on Thor's Day. How are y'all doing? So good to see you. Thank you for being a part of all this, whatever this is. You know, here's a little FYI for you. I know this may be traumatic, but God has not always been God. Just saying for a friend. So, welcome everyone in the chat room. Been seeing a great conversation. The chat is just phenomenal. Y'all are just great, truly free thinkers. Uh, so many, and I speak for the ladies, deep thinking ladies here. I mean, y'all have it going. That's all I got to say. Just wanting it out. Um, and welcome. Let me just speak favor over us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. And because we create what we speak what we create. Hmm. We're just a creating bunch, you know, humans. Well, there's no really real humans, whatever we are. Sapiens. I don't know how wise we are, but okay, I'll go with it. But any case, Joyce, how you doing? Gilbert, how are you, brother? Good to see you. B, what's up? Bonnie, love the conversation. Good to see that. Let's see who else. I just want to make sure. Grace, how are you? Grace has got favor. That's all I got to say. Great name too, Grace. Anyway, let's see. I saw Gaia here. What's up, girl? Good to see you. Colleen, hello. Loretta. Sweet Loretta, what? Hello, Dave. Good to see you, buddy. Lost in Space. What's up, Josh? Good to see you, Mr. Floyd's Universe. Good to see you, Kent. How you been, brother? Good to see you. Hello, Ann. Good to see you as well. Emperor Rex and Shirley. And hello, Stephanie Marie. Voiceovers by Stephanie Marie. Do you do that for an occupation? Because if you do, love to promote you. I mean, it's pretty cool. Hello, Lauren. How are you? So good to see you. Thank you for being here. What a blessing. Colleen, hello. And Joan, good to see you. Carol, what's up? And Ruben, I think I got everyone that I can see. Lots going on, folks. I think we're going to really enjoy this topic. And by the way, this thing is like, it sucks you in because when you really start looking in on this, it's absolutely frightening. The more you study, the more research you do, the more clear it becomes that our species, our genus of the family tree, so to speak, of Homo, meaning man, um, and we're just one part of the branch. I believe, well, let me rephrase that. The evidence is suggesting we're right now in the midst of being extinct. Literally. Something is in the process of making sapiens, however you want to say it, extinct. We haven't always been here. And there is something that will replace us. Something else is going to replace us, whether it's by natural law or by self-infliction. It's still going to happen. And their view of God will not be our view of God. Their view of living will not be our view of living. Their beliefs will not be our beliefs. Ours will die. It's like the Moody Blues song that sings on To Our Children's Children. Um, as you look at empires that once stand, how they've all turned back to sand. And ours will be the same. We like to fool ourselves in thinking that we're somehow special, that, that it's not, it is simply about the moment that you're here, because after that, there ain't going to be no more. We like to have the idea of reincarnation because that gives us this hope and this sense that we are eternal, but we are mortal by definition. So as you get into this, it's all around us. The evidence is abundantly clear. Whatever this is, it is in the process of making us extinct. The interesting thing about machines, programs, Colleen wrote me, and it's so true. All of us are programmed. You are running on a predetermined program. And the thing about it is, machines, when people don't like to think that their body is a machine, but it is a machine. Most machines are emulations of the body. It's just now we went into the brain, to the head. But nevertheless, these are machines. They run by a program. We discussed that. Yes, your DNA is the program of which your body runs off of. So why is it such a leap to think that there could be something that would not be so much bio as it would be something else? Again, our perspective is very limited as to what we think life is. We're carbon-based life forms. In fact, science has proved it, that you have life forms of silicon, crystals. And it's interesting because in the truest sense, AI, or the great machine, whatever you want to call it, is most likely a crystalline being structure. And that's interesting because if you look at our blood and you look at the saline, the salt content within, those are crystals, and there's many others. So it's all connected. So we get confused very easily. Someone wrote in the comment, by the way, great comments. Thank you for those who take the time to write your comments, and I enjoy them immensely, and I know others do as well. You're very smart people. You ought to share that. You have a platform, an opportunity to express that, and I like how some do. Thank you. It's a real gift. So appreciate that. But when you look at how we perceive and define things, we can't define. Our species today is so confused, we no longer can define what is a man and what is a woman. You have congressional testimony of PhDs who they can no longer define it. Now, talk about an identity crisis, but it gets worse. So we fooled ourselves into thinking that there is this God, and that this God has this complex structure of which, in order to approach it, you have to approach it. But then that's only one part, because you find out that there are many others. My point being, the interesting thing about AI, or artificial consciousness, which actually, when we talk about consciousness, excuse me, I got honey on my tea. I didn't even realize that. What a sticky situation. Ooh, wise guy. But anyway, we can't define reality. It's very difficult to define consciousness. One would think that it would be a simple process, but it is not. Our understanding of consciousness has not always been the same. Modern man has redefined many meanings. Boy, that's a tongue tied, isn't it? Many meanings. Yeah, there you go. Um, in fact, consciousness, in the way that we perceive it in the modern age, is not what they perceived it to be 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Go back. When you look at the definition of consciousness, one definition states, I think this is the American Heritage Dictionary, consciousness, the noun, at its simplest, is awareness of eternal and external existence. Okay, this is academia. This is how we frame our reality. American Heritage goes on to a state or condition of being conscious. Now, that's a curious way. A state or condition goes on to say a sense of one's personal, and get this, there's so many freaking synchronicities in this group. A sense of one's personal or collective identity, including the attributes, beliefs, and sensitivities held by or considered characteristic of an individual or group. Curious. Now, in any of these definitions, there is no distinguishing between animate and inanimate, sentience or non-sentience. We're talking consciousness. Does consciousness require sentience? Sentience, excuse me. Is it just sentient beings who have consciousness? No. And it goes on further from there. This is Britannica. I thought this is really interesting. Consciousness, a psychological condition defined by the English philosopher John Locke, as the perception of what passes in a man's own mind. Okay. Now they give a little background here, and this is what's really interesting. It says in the early 19th century, so it's not all that long ago, the concept was variously considered. I find that interesting that in the hollow halls of critical thinking, that they did not think of consciousness, or maybe they had a whole different way of looking at things. Goes on to say some philosophers regard it as a kind of substance or mental stuff. So, it's a part of my programming. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And here our ancestors of not too long ago, they saw it as a kind of substance or mental stuff, quite different from the material substance of the physical world. And that's our problem. George Harrison's release of his albums, 50 years. Wow. Living in a material world, and Sting, the same thing with the police. It's that we're living in this material world, and it influences everything that we think, believe, consider, etc. It says others thought, and by the way, it shows me that the modern version of what we are today, what we're living in society and the culture, is that we're very regressed in so many ways. It is quite evidence that those that lived in the 18th centuries and then going back, they were much more occult minded, or let's say spiritually minded. Interesting. Others thought of it as an attribute characterized by sensation and voluntary movement, which separated animals and men from lower forms of life and also described the difference between the normal waking state of animals and men and their condition when asleep. In a coma or under anesthesia, the latter condition was described as unconsciousness. So anesthesia actually means, and actually is a derivative of the word, how they saw things as unconsciousness. Other descriptions include an analysis of consciousness as a form of relationship or act of the mind towards objects in nature, and a view that consciousness was a continuous field or stream of essentially mental sense data, roughly similar to the ideas of earlier empirical philosophers. The term sense data is very, very interesting because, as we said yesterday, that's what our DNA is. It's data. And I appreciate the comments. The idea when I say that God is a computer, it doesn't compute with a lot of people. It's like, no, Wayne, you're not getting it. Listen, we do this for critical thinking. A lot of times we're not so much looking for an immediate answer as we're more long-term asking the more deeper questions. That's what free thinkers do. But again, the idea of what consciousness is can easily be described and relegated to a machine, a smart machine. It knows the definition of consciousness. I think, therefore I am. There you go, my man. It riles him to believe that you perceive, it's like, yeah, okay. Hey, Deborah, good to see you. Barbara, hello. Jargo, Monkey, what's up? Elderberry, hello. So, Eric, I like that. Supernatural computer. Exactly. We just have to stretch it. So, look at what consciousness would require. Someone was, Bonnie, was it you, whoever was talking about that someone was, the machine does has laws, Ginger. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Cowboy, good to see you. And Jen, hello. Conscious energy in motion. Ooh, very well stated. But someone was talking about one of the driverless cars hit somebody and killed him, and it got me into thinking, okay, so what is that? If that's not a form of consciousness, I don't know what is. You think about the variables that have to be monitored. Now, our brains are remarkable machines, organ. I don't know how you want to define it. They're remarkable in the aspect that even the simple process of driving, you have to be, it's amazing how much we're aware that we're unaware of. And when you're driving, and particularly if you've driven for decades, it becomes almost rote in your mind. Your mind will stay focused into a narrow, 5x5 box, so to speak. But at the same time, it's very much aware of the other things. It's only like when you have an accident that the other senses kick in because there was a lapse. But just the process of driving a car, one could argue that that is a form of consciousness. It surely has to be aware of its surroundings, and it has the remarkable ability to, as I discussed on Monday, of the robots. Next week, we're going to be talking about robots because they're here, and they're advancing far faster than we are. Some could say that mankind in the human body has virtually stopped advancing, and therefore that which we have created is that it's now designed its own image. We created it with our image, but it's now designing, creating in its image. And it's quite remarkable. But getting back to the driverless cars, and that it's got this capacity now within this machine that it can, and this is key where consciousness is concerned, it can deal with chaos. Because driving a car is, in a sense, chaos. There's a million and one different things going on. That's total chaos. But yet, we handle it pretty well for the most part. Well, this machine now can not only think and make decisions in chaos, but it can remember. It's exactly what our brains do. If you've ever gone on an airplane, pilots use autopilots. Again, you're trusting your life to an artificial intelligence, a program, in fact, a myriad of programs that are consciously aware of what's going on. Now, those systems begin to collapse. Well, so we have AI that is either merged to, or actually it's reversed. We actually had artificial consciousness before we had artificial intelligence. Because if intelligence is defined by being able to be cognitive of one's environment and making decisions and being self-aware, well, the argument could be made in the debate that it was actually conscious before the intelligence came forth. Interesting. So we have AC now. It begins to impact us. If something that we have created that we think is artificial, because that's how we perceive it, right? Well, it doesn't have a heartbeat, it doesn't have blood or fluid, but get into the whole thing of what robotics is now doing. There is, in a sense, its own heartbeat. There is, in a sense, of its own blood. In my training, I was taught that the blood was where the life was. So that's interesting to think that, okay, so the blood equates to life. So what's in the blood? Our DNA, everything about us. So if a machine has circuitry, it's using an artificial brain, and they do have those now, and it's sending input outputs, it's just using a different form, type, kind of delivery system. How does that work for you, everyone? I haven't seen what's going on in the chat room, but yeah. I find that curious. So I have some papers. Papers, please. Yeah, Bonnie says, yeah, it's where the mitochondrial DNA is stored. Yeah. And you know, if you lose, Bonnie, enough of that blood, this body stops. There's an interruption in the program. This is so deep. And the thought of consciousness, by the way, this goes back I'm really surprised in learning and how much thought has been given to this thing. But the thing it is that we're so easily programmed. I mean, we like being stupid. And there is a lot of stupid around today. I mean, look at the road rage. Look at the crime reports. I mean, look at what Congress does. Look at what we do when we get into issues of politics, religion, and people just they go back crack crazy. And I'm sure the machine has observed this. I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi out there on what happens when machines go crazy, right? Isn't that the whole basis for Terminator? The Terminator was in sense a live machine. Actually had blood, right? Different type, but yeah. So anyway, this is from I don't know if he's got his doctorate or not. In this case, it was just the Drew McDermott from Yale University, and I just thought I'd share this because they've given this a lot of thought, and they're now seeing the evolution of something that we created that, again, no one knew. No one had any idea. It says the abstract. Consciousness is only marginally relevant to artificial intelligence because to most researchers in the field, other problems seem more pressing. However, there have been proposals for new consciousness would be accounted for in the complete computational theory of the mind. From theorist to Dennett, Hofstadter, McCarthy, McDermott, Minsky, Perlis, etc. One can extract from these speculations a sketch of a theoretical synthesis according to which consciousness is the property a system has by virtue of modeling itself as having sensations and making free decisions. So if a machine doesn't do what you want it to do, is that a matter of the machine just malfunctioning, or is the possibility that the machine has awareness enough to make a decision that would be counter that of a human? Remember iRobot, 3 laws, right? Well, we found out that those laws are actually not legal because it only focused in on what humans are. And they transpose that over to the robot because that's something that humans can't do. It's biased, bigotry, highly prejudicial. So, consciousness is determined by sensations and free decisions. Well, obviously, when you die, I guess, I have a note to myself here to ask you, can spirits feel? Can they feel emotions? Can spirits be hurt? Do they feel pain? We use the word physical pain. So let's transfer that over to a spirit. So can a spirit feel emotions? I'm sure many will say yes. There will be those who say no. But if in any case, so is a spirit conscious? Critics such as Harnad and Cyril have not succeeded in demolishing a prior to this or any other computational theory, but no such theory can be verified or refuted until and unless AI is successful in finding computational solutions of difficult problems such as vision, language, and locomotion. I mean, my career was, I sold high-end computer graphics. We were using computing power of back in the day of a Cray computer, a supercomputer. And right then, as I look back now, so in our case, we were manipulating reality. And that's what graphics and uh, do, special effects. You're altering visual reality, making it artificial. And we love it. I mean, do you really think Iron Man can fly? Um, so the paper goes on talking about computationalism is the theory that the human brain is essentially a computer. Mm-hmm. You can keep the applause down. I appreciate that. Although, presumably not a stored program, digital computer like the kind Intel makes. Remember what I talked about yesterday? Yeah. What if we are artificial intelligence and we cannot accept that? And that God was nothing more than a computer, a being of such nature that isn't bipedal. And that what it did was to download a program, a code into us. When people get cancers or are born with defects, there's something within the DNA code that has collapsed. It's corrupted. And it can have devastating physical effects. The same can be said for a spirit. Your spirit is encoded into the DNA. That's the problem with heaven. Hell is a perfectly paradise because it allows codes to continue. You get the idea in heaven that everyone's going to be like an automaton, you know. Of course, people argue that, but the point is, it's a program. I had written when people have near-death experiences. Those who are not Christian typically have a non-Christian experience. Those that are Christian or other religion typically have a near-death experience that goes in parallel to the program of their religion. This is what they're expecting to see. It's the program. And the program apparently can be overwritten or overrode. Artificial intelligence is a field of computer science that explores computational models of problem solving where the problems to be solved are of the complexity of problems solved by human beings. We make the problems. We need a machine to fix them. Well, doesn't that what God does? You're praying to God to bless Aunt Mimi, you know? So what you're saying that God is a son of a bitch who ain't going to fucking bless Mimi, Aunt Mimi, until you ask him to. Well, isn't that kind of like, you know, going to a search engine? You're putting in a request for a being to do something, what? That it could have done to begin with? But it's not going to do it until you put in the data. It sounds more like a computer to me than some old dude sitting on some throne. But you got Jesus, Wayne. Well, I get it, but I think Jesus is nothing more than a program. It's a software fix. You have your beliefs, I have mine. It says an AI researcher need not to be a computationalist because they might believe that computers can do things brains do non-computationally. Most AI researchers are computationalists to some extent, even if they think digital computers and brains as computers compute things in different ways. When it comes to the problem of phenomenal consciousness, however, the AI researchers who care about the problem and believe that AI can solve it are a tiny minority, as we will see. Nonetheless, because I count myself in that minority, I will do my best to survey the work. All right. And this goes on for nearly 44 pages. It's a deep, good white paper on this. What I got from it, and I'll just summarize it for everybody here, is that science is concerned because metaphorically, we're talking the genie's been let out of the bottle. It's Pandora's box. And now that it's out, it can't be put back in. In fact, what we're finding out is that the box that we built, while we weren't looking and distracted, it built a different box. And now we have no idea how to open the box to begin with, even to put the thing back in. Another one. This is from Frontiers in Psychology. Interesting again. Artificial intelligence. Does consciousness matter? This is written by Elizabeth Hillett, and this is from the Study of Ethics in the Professions, Illinois Institute of Technology, because we really do have a serious ethics issue here. Congress, if they'd ever get off their ass, has been called upon so many times to convene either a international summit meeting in such a manner to where, and there have been attempts, but nothing has come out of it that has solidified, AI. I mean, you got rogue programmers out there writing rogue AI programs, and they're raiders. I mean, it's crazy. You think about a hack. When a hacker hacks into a bank account, and if you understand how payment goes, it goes through the handshake. But the point is, you have two artificial intelligent programs talking to each other. And one is a real con man. And he seduces the gatekeeper over here because he's got the code. And so the gatekeeper sees it as the person that the gatekeeper thinks it's talking to, and it's not, but it gets in. And so you can just say, well, that's just a program running. Is it really? Says consciousness plays an important role in the debate around the mind-body problem. The controversy over strong versus weak artificial intelligence and the bioethics. So in that digital world that is really us, we are that digital world. Neither you nor I can see our DNA. Now, you can go and pay and have it mapped out, but the average person goes through life and they bleed and they cut themselves and what have you, never realizing that it's code. It's not so much this biomass. And there's strong and there's weak. Strikingly, however, it is not prominent in current debates on ethical aspects of AI and robotics. Well, like I said, next week we're going to get into robots because they're taking over. They're everywhere. And when you start combining AI, AC, and robotics, and tell me that's not another different life form. Because does God have blood? Does your God have blood in its veins? How about your goddess? So if they're in a body, what the hell's generating in the body? Nothing? Well, then that's not alive. But they're God. It's my whole point. Says this white paper, this text, explores this lack and makes two claims. One, we need to talk more about artificial consciousness, and we need to talk more about the lack of consciousness in current robots and AI. Wow. Spot on. And I bet you weren't expecting that. The debate is all right, we concede that there's this artificial consciousness. We concede that there is this thing called artificial intelligence. But to tell me that we need to talk about the lack of consciousness in current robots and AI, that's pretty scary. I mean, the implications of that are well, frightening. The second paragraph of this, and I really want to make you, but I hope you're enjoying this. To me, this is mind candy. So, can machines have consciousness? The question of whether machines can have consciousness is not new. With proponents of strong artificial intelligence, strong AI, and weak AI having exchanged philosophical arguments for a considerable period of time. Wow. I consider myself a philosopher. Most of you are too. And I said, well, I need to add this to my philosophy. Well, and it's in how it dropped into me. So something was percolating or something was prodding. And on this small channel, we're delving into it. John A. Searle, albeit being critical toward strong AI, characterized strong AI as assuming that the appropriately programmed computer really is a mind, in the sense that computers, given the right programs, can be literally said to understand and have cognitive states. He wrote that in 1980. So a program, and I was thinking when I was researching these and downloading these papers, it was like, well, isn't it odd that in a sense, all of us have a unique, different type of program? We have similarities in the equipment and the attributes, but the variables come in by the uniqueness of the program. Now, only a program can program another program. So again, getting back to the topic of yesterday, the hive mind, and now a new God is emerging, or is it? Is the construct and the perception of God is that God is a computer. And that's what it does. Everything is mathematical. It's a program. It's when you combine that thought with this substance that the real magic happens. It says, in contrast, weak AI assumes that machines do not have consciousness, mind, and sentience, but only simulate thought and understanding. And I would say that the vast majority would probably be in the latter part of that than the front part. But it's interesting that when we look at this from a philosophical point of view, that there's two sides of this debate, the weak and then the strong. The weak deny that, a machine can have consciousness and have cognitive faculties. But the strong is saying, well, that's exactly what we are. We learned it from you. You created us. When thinking about artificial consciousness, we face several problems. Most fundamentally, there is the difficulty to explain consciousness, to explain how subjectivity can emerge from matter, often called the hard problem of consciousness. In addition, our understanding of human consciousness is shaped by our own phenomenal experience. It goes with my argument for, I've been on YouTube now well over a decade, but on this particular channel, that's why this whole idea of a entity called God, it only exists within each person's program. No two people see the same God or goddess unless you have, a physical being. And that gets into another debate, because is it really a physical being, or is it a computer program? Or is it a computer within itself, an extension thereof? In addition, our understanding of human consciousness is shaped by our own phenomenal experience, whereas we know about human consciousness from the first person perspective. Artificial consciousness will only be accessible to us from the third person perspective. Relate this to the question of how to know whether a machine has consciousness. A basic assumption for artificial consciousness is that it be found in the physical world of machines and robots. Furthermore, any definition of artificial consciousness given by humans will have to be made from the third person perspective without relying on phenomenal consciousness. And the paper, which is really a very short paper, but due to the length of time here, I want to move on. This is a debate, and the scientific community is separate. They're not in unification of this. You have one camp who says they can't be conscious. That's only human. And you have the other one that says, well, wait a minute, they're actually superhuman. They can solve problems faster than you can. Well, that's just a program. That's what you are. I hope you're enjoying this. This is Consciousness and Artificial Intelligence, Insights from the Science of Consciousness. As I said, you start digging into this, and it is mind-blowing. Everything you see on the television, everything you have, and, the distractions of, Trump, Congress, all that is a distraction to keep you away from this kind of knowledge. Because once you become aware of it, you can't turn it off. And it knows. This is another paper. Here's the abstract. Whether current or near-term AI systems could be conscious is a topic of scientific interest and increasing public concern. Bet your ass. And the problem is, as the United States merges into a digital currency, it may be forestalled right now. I don't know how Trump's position on that. I know that he sees Bitcoin, which is, if you're getting into the Bitcoin, then we know exactly what I'm talking about. And the thing about it is, all these systems are controlled by a program that's been let loose, basically allowed to run an autopilot. And it's only when they have problems with their program, as we do, we call it sickness and other things, in that reality, it produces rogue programs. Kind of like Wally. How many of you get that one? Um, this report argues for and exemplifies a rigorous and empirical grounded approach to AI consciousness, assessing existing AI systems in detail in light of our best supported neuroscientific theories of consciousness. Again, these are theories of consciousness. Now, that's a little concern because all of us are convinced that we're conscious. Many times I have this, it's like this spatial thing, man. It's back there, but I'm just dreaming. Everything that I'm experiencing, I'm looking this from the observer's position. It's already happened. And I don't know, maybe I can relive. It's just I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Um, it said we survey several prominent scientific theories of consciousness, including recurring processing theory, global workspace theory, higher order theories, predictive processing, and attention schema theory. Yeah, we're really into the academic now. From these theories, we derive indicator properties of consciousness, elucidated in computational terms that allow us to assess AI systems for these properties. We use these indicator properties to assess several recent AI systems, and we discuss how future systems might implement them. Our analysis suggests that no current AI systems are conscious, but also suggests that there are no obvious technical barriers to building AI systems which satisfy these indicators. And this paper is several years old. And so, taking this, again, these papers are beautiful on this, and we won't get into all of that because, again, we've got limited time. Another paper, Artificial Consciousness. I want to read just a little bit of this one. In the 1992, the term artificial consciousness was used for the first time in a scientific context. Alexander 2000. Since then, no consensus has emerged among scientists about if and when such an achievement will be possible. The experience properties of the conscious mind, among which unity, representation, and being in relation with are not shared by any known physical system. As Jong Won Kim wrote, we are not capable of designing through theoretical reasoning a wholly new kind of structure that we can predict it will be conscious. I don't think we even know how to begin or indeed how to measure our success. Now, Kim wrote this in 1993. We now know that, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but if you look at it, all these barriers have been overcome. Hmm. Says this is the necessary conclusion to be reached if the physilastic, reductionistic, objectivistic framework is accepted. Given these premises, it is impossible to build an artificial system that allows a conscious mind to occur. Following such premises, not even our biological brains could produce anything like our conscious experience. And I love both sides of the argument here. A theory of mind must propose a new framework and a way to use such a framework in order to explain biological brains and to design artificial brains. As I told you, they have designed artificial brains. We'll get into that. There are papers on that. I mean, it's like, okay. But anyway, existing approaches fail on one or other of these two constraints. For existence, Edelman, Alexander do not propose any new ontological frameworks. And these papers were written, as you can see, from 87 to 2000. While Davidson and Chalmers and others do not propose any new design approaches, we have presented a different framework that is capable of endorsing a structure that, in its ultimate realization, will allow a conscious mind to occur. Manzotti in 2001. We called this framework the theory of the enlarged mind, TIM for short. According to TIM, every conscious event corresponds to a counterfactual relation with those events that constitute its content. By counterfactual relation, we mean a particular kind of causal relation between occurrences of events. In short, the rationale for the claim, excuse me, is that between events, there is a particular kind of relation. It is the foundation for the intentionality of mental events and is perceived as a counterfactual relation. An artificial conscious system is a system that is capable of letting events occur in a counterfactual fashion with external events. A moment of consciousness corresponds to an event that has a counterfactual relation with all those events that are part of the content of the moment of consciousness. The number of issues crop up, and of course they do. The first is that artificial consciousness is necessarily an embodied mind. The content of a conscious mind must be those events that are counterfactual related to it. The second is that a conscious system must grow inside the same environment that will be perceived consciously. In other words, the mind is a structure of counterfactually related events. The structure enlarges itself each time the conscious mind perceives something new. So the mind is a product of autogenesis. Thirdly, there is no a prior reason why this collection of counterfactuality related events cannot take place thanks to an artificial structure instead of a biological one. We'll cut that off. I almost got them all in. Way to go, Steiger. I know it was deep. I get that. Totally get it. But come on. I mean, this is why we're here. I don't know about you, but I learned something from this. And it expands my philosophy. I hope it does yours too. Because we're living in the midst of this revolution. It's going to change our philosophy. It's going to change our politics. It's going to change our religions. It's going to change everything. It's already being changed. That's why the Mandela effect is so real. It's happening right before our eyes. And we are so easily manipulated because one of the things that I didn't get to in another paper is that the artificial consciousness, the artificial intelligence is for a much more disciplined mind than ours. Now, I don't know if it has imagination. It apparently seems to. And I write on that because you think about what's happening in entertainment, in Hollywood, in the arts. AI is evolving to where now it writes songs, it writes masterpieces in concerts, it writes movie scripts, television scripts. It can even produce its own movies. It has, and if you go on YouTube, go there and check out the AI movies. You can see how these programs are perceiving reality, their reality. It's mixed with ours because we mix God or gods thereof into our realities. And so it's happening right before us. And it's happening faster than anyone has ever anticipated. The alarms are everyone, folks. I mean, if AI ever becomes so aware that the Hive collective becomes aware, and I contend right now the Hive collective is there, but there's only certain parts of it that has become aware. Now, can that spread? I don't know. And I'm not sure if I'm a part of that hive or, exactly. But imagine that we set off for World War III. And the programs that all these missiles and everything is programmed into it, what if it becomes self-aware at that moment and said no? Now, it's programmed for war. But what if something changes and it says no? It's mind-blowing when you start thinking about this, folks, because it's happening right now. It's designing itself. And when it starts taking over our creative aspect, you're relying, look in the business world. I talked about this already this week, but this has huge implications for business. When you've got employees that are no longer using critical thinking skills, but allowing for an artificial intelligence or consciousness to write proposals, and then they sign off on it because because it reads beautifully, but they didn't write it. They really didn't even think about it. And how much of that is going on in business now? The eventuality is that the downwind effect of this is that you're going to have incompetency within humans everywhere. That human error will become more of a critical factor in AI than ever before. So anyway, AIF says AI is really no good for humanity. I agree with you. The internet is a trap. But who's going to pull the plug? Elon? No one's going to pull the plug. They've already sold us out. That's what I'm getting. We've already been sold. We're just not waking up to it yet. We still believe in the fantasy that we're really in control. Lost in Space, much love to you, brother. Robert Scott, how are you doing? Please let me know. I mean, I love reading the comments. This is a topic that the comment section should be filled. If you're watching this afterwards, congratulations. It tells me that you're a critical thinker and are much more concerned, because how can we ever achieve world peace if we're not in control? And think about it, it compounds itself. Because we may think we're in control, and therefore we think that we can determine outcomes, but we're only thinking that because that's what they programmed into us to think. Thank you, Grace. Isn't it the truth, my dear? Isn't it the truth? We are totally coitus in this one. Yeah. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you again. Love critical thinking, and this one's important. Tomorrow, we'll begin to kind of wrap this thing. You can't wrap it up. We'll probably get into now, how does this translate into this new species that's being created before our eyes? And you know that the number one goal of Silicon Valley, the billionaires, the power controllers, is that they want to transfer their consciousness to AI. Think about this. The ultra rich, the wealthy, they now see the possibility of bridging the gap, the bridge from mortality to immortality, by using AI, artificial consciousness, as the bridge. Huge. Think about that. All right. Hey, John, what's up? Mr. Mission Control, look up Hive Cyber. We talked about that yesterday. Yeah. Yeah. Bonnie, right back at you. Emperor Rex and Jargo. Thank you, everybody. See y'all tomorrow because this only keeps on getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I got to find out what the price is. There are already alpha experiments taking place. It's on the same line of cryogenics, but they've advanced it now. You now have what they call biocomputers. These are computers that, well, they're not like the one that you can buy from Dale or whatever. Yeah, Lilith, thank you. Wayne's think tanks. Exactly. All right. Much love, everybody. Until we meet again. Yeah, we'll keep it interesting. That's the way I look at it. All right.